Hello everyone. First news update from Moscow, Russia for 8th of November 2024. Now it's 10:30 in the morning here in Moscow, and I have prepared quite a number of important and interesting, in my opinion, news, and hopefully you will find it interesting. Also, and well, let's start this update with this report from RT about statements that Russian president made during his speech on Valdai International Discussion Club yesterday. And well, first of all, Putin congratulated Donald Trump on victory in presidential race. Russian President Vladimir Putin has congratulated Donald Trump on his electoral victory and confirmed that he is ready to talk with the US president-elect. Putin hailed Trump's courageous response to the attempt to assassinate him in July. Speaking at the meeting of the Valdai International Discussion Club in the southern Russian city of Sochi on Thursday, and this is, I believe, 21st gathering of the Valdai Club, Putin said that he wished to offer congratulations to Trump for victory in presidential race. Putin also noted that Trump has expressed a desire to end the Ukrainian conflict and that such a statement deserves attention. At the very least, the Russian president then paid a tribute to Trump's actions during an attempt on his life in Pennsylvania this summer, when then candidate Trump rose to his feet and raised his fist after a bullet grazed his ear. "I was impressed. He is a courageous person," Putin said. "A person shows her true color in these emergencies, and I think he acquitted himself admirably and in a violent fashion as a man." Putin said that he is open to receive a phone call from Trump. And by the way, we have Trump's response on that. He was giving interview to NBC, and he was asked about possibility that he will have a conversation with Putin. That's what he says here. So US President-elect Donald Trump has said that he has not talked to Russian President Vladimir Putin yet, but that their pair will likely speak in the near future. Putin earlier said that he was ready to talk to US President-elect. In an interview with NBC News on Thursday, Trump said that he had spoken to probably some 70 world leaders since his election victory, but Putin was not among them. However, he added he thinks they will talk. They will talk, and well, hopefully they will. Hopefully they will, and maybe that will be a good first step to lay down ground for possible future conversations, negotiations, or maybe even cooperation. Although, as I said previously, I'm not really overly optimistic on topic of de-escalation, possible de-escalation between Washington and Moscow under leadership, while the US will be under leadership of Trump. But who knows? Who knows? Time will tell, isn't it? And I know there are certain groups in this world that are very optimistic, or there are certain groups that are very pessimistic, and these groups that are pessimistic has also ground for their pessimism, because, for example, just recently Trump was a guest on Joe Rogan's podcast, and during the conversation with Rogan, Trump praised basically Mike Pompeo. He was very kind to Pompeo, said some good things about him, which is not really the indicator that Trump is on the page of de-escalating anything, right? Because we know who Mike Pompeo is, isn't it? And for example, if some members of our community don't remember statements of Mike Pompeo, I can give you this news. For example, let's even translate this to be more precise. when he was criticizing Biden's administration for doing not enough against Russia. So that's the kind of people that Trump is favoring, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if Mike Pompeo will end up in his administration. Maybe not in a position that he was holding before as a head of State Department or head of CIA, but maybe he will be chosen as a Trump's assistant in security issues, in national security issues. Maybe he will replace Sullivan on that position. I don't know. Let's go through this news here. Former U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has criticized the current U.S. administration's handling of Ukraine, saying Washington's approach to helping Kyiv was insufficient and overdue. This was reported by Time magazine. According to Pompeo, the assistance provided to Ukraine after the outbreak of their conflict was too slow, insufficient, belated, and too restrained. The publication points out the former Secretary of the State stressed that Congress has already approved more than 174 billion US dollars to support the regime, but the administration of US President Joe Biden did not use these funds properly. It is noted that during the visit of Pompeo in Kiev in September, he proposed a tougher strategy for helping Kyiv regime. He called on the next US government to tighten sanctions against Russia, lift all restrictions on the use of US-made weapons to strike deep inside the Russian territory, and create a 500 billion land-lease program to supply Kyiv regime with additional weapons. 500 billion, by the way. Mike Pompeo is okay, that's enough, I guess. To refresh in mind who the hell Pompeo really is. This is a typical neocon, warmongering, mass murderer and a criminal, and should be in jail for life. And Trump is embracing him as if Pompeo is some sort of, I don't know, good guy, while he is not. And that's from where my kind of pessimism is coming from, because as I said in previous updates, by the way, things may go both ways. Maybe Trump and his running mate J.D. Vance, their team, will manage somehow to have enough freedoms to really act on their pre-election promises when it comes to foreign policy, for example. But I have some doubts that they will be able to get free of influence of a deep state or military-industrial complex, neocons, all the powerful groups, basically, multinational corporations and so on, all the powerful groups that are pulling the strings in US, right? We will see what will happen, but I don't think after inauguration Trump will lift any sanctions on Russia. I don't think Trump will de-escalate with Russia. I don't think Trump will hold their weapon supplies or money flow to Kyiv regime to prolong this proxy war against Russia. I don't think any of this will be done under his presidency, and I'm afraid things may go in an opposite way. Trump may escalate her big time, and as you can see, dear friends, Trump is has very good words to share about Pompeo, and Pompeo is promoting idea of allocating 500 billion US dollars for more weapons for the Kyiv regime. So that may be the direction that Trump will push America, right? Who knows? Anyways, let's continue. RT is reporting that Russian president, during his appearance on the World Day conference, also spoke about obviously Ukraine, and He said that Ukraine must be neutral. Kiev will remain a tool in foreign hands and will never achieve true independence and sovereignty unless it becomes a neutral. Russian President Vladimir Putin has said that this neutral status for Ukraine is a key prerequisite for ending the conflict permanently, he told the press at the Valda International Discussion Club in Sochi on Thursday. If there is a non-neutrality, it is hard to imagine any kind of good neighborly relations between Russia and Ukraine. He responded to a journalist's question about the conflict. The Russian leader explained that without a neutral status, Ukraine will constantly be used as a tool in foreign hands to the detriment of the interests of the Russian Federation. Thus, there would be no basis for normalizing relations, a scenario Moscow wishes to avoid. He said, "We are determined to create conditions for a long-term settlement, allowing Ukraine to eventually become an independent, sovereign state rather than a tool in the hands of a third countries." Putin also noted that Ukraine's incursion into Russia's Kursk region was a stark example of a senseless move imposed on Kiev by its Western sponsors, with the Ukrainian people now paying a heavy price as their army suffers colossal losses. And when it comes to Kursk salient area, as the Russian Defense Ministry reporting, Kiev regime's armed forces already lost more than 30,000 military personnel since the beginning of this invasion. So yes, Kiev regime is suffering significant losses, and society of this former Soviet Republic is suffering significantly, and all due to this Western-controlled regime, basically, that been implemented in this former Soviet Republic in 2014 after Western-sponsored and organized coup d'etat, right? Hardly anyone will argue with the points that Russian president is making. If Ukraine is not neutral, it will always be used against Russia, always will be threat, and therefore there is only two options that I see: either Ukraine is neutral, or there is no Ukraine on political map. That's the only two realistic ways that situation may develop. Either Western ruling class is realizing that they lost this proxy war against Russia and they will start de-escalating before things are escalated on even higher level, or Western ruling class will continue pouring in weapons and money and prolonging this proxy war against Russia, and in that case there will be no more Ukraine on the political map after this conflict will end. That's how it's gonna be. Let's continue, and Wall Street Journal, by the way, Wall Street Journal come up with the article that Trump's team is working on a new plan to end a Ukraine conflict. Let's go through this news. Also, even though I'm a bit skeptical, not overly skeptical, but a bit skeptical that Trump and his team will be able to really de-escalate, but I mean, I hope so. I hope they will be able to de-escalate, but anyways, let's go through this news. The team of Republican Donald Trump, who won US presidential election, is developing a new plan for resolving the conflict in Ukraine. This was reported by the Wall Street Journal, and then quote, by the way, of sources. We can train the Ukrainian military or provide other support, but weapons supplied to Ukraine will be European. We don't send American men and women to keep their peace in Ukraine, and we don't pay for it. Make the Poles, Germans, Brits, and British and the French do it. The publication reports the words of one of the members of the Trump team. According to newspaper, Trump's advisors want to create a demilitarized zone with a length of 1,300 kilometers or 1.3 thousand kilometers along the real front line, current line of contact, basically, while the United States will not send its peacekeepers forces there. Ukraine must commit itself not to join NATO for at least the next 20 years. In exchange, Washington will supply Kyiv with weapons to prevent the resumption of the conflict in the future, the newspaper writes. And by the way, there's so much to unpack here, isn't it? If this is really the plan that Trump's team is working, then I mean, this plan will this is non-starter for Russia. From Russian standpoint, I think this is not non-starter because first of all, according to Russian constitution, by the way, Crimea, Kherson region, Zaporozhye region, Donetsk People's Republic, and Lugansk People's Republic are part of Russia. People voted in referendums there. They make up decision. They make up their mind. They voted. They want to be part of Russia. Their will was recognized by Russian Federation, and now they are part of Russia, according to Russian constitution. So no Russian leader can ever agree not to, to hold their special military operation and not to continue liberation of at least these regions that are already part of Russia, right? So that's the one reason why this idea that Wall Street Journal is reporting about is a non-starter, but this is not all. Freezing of the conflict will and a moratorium to join NATO for at least 20 years. This is also not the answer, right? One may read this initiative as especially from Russia, as, you know what, we will freeze this conflict, we will arm Kiev regime for another 2 decades, we will train them, we will make them a formidable force, and after 20 years, you know what, we will provoke another conflict, right? That's how I see it. And according to this plan, US also will be engaged in weaponizing, militarizing Kyiv-controlled territory, right? So this is also a non-starter. There is no way Moscow will ever agree on that. And third and also important point is that I don't think Poles, Germans, British people or French are that keen to basically send their peacekeepers or send their troops to die in Kyiv-controlled territory or to pay for Kyiv regime any longer, right? Or much longer, at least. So I don't think this idea will fly even in European capitals, Western European capitals, for example. Right? So yet again, I don't know if Wall Street Journal is faking it up. Maybe this is just a fake story created by Wall Street Journal staff. I would not be surprised at all if that's the case. But if Trump's team is really working on this issue, then I mean they are mistaken. They don't understand then what is happening here, right? And the Russian leader was very clear. Ukraine should be neutral, which means no NATO in 10, 20, 50, 100 years, no military alliances ever, full neutrality, right? And then all the Russian regions, new Russian regions, should be freed, all entire territories, and recognized as under Russian jurisdiction. Without it, there can be no meaningful negotiations. It just cannot happen. Nothing to be said about another important point, by the way. In my personal opinion, and I believe many fellow citizens many of my fellow citizens here in Russia will agree with me that I think people in the Kharkov region, the Dnipropetrovsk region, Nikolaev region, Odessa region, at least in these regions, people definitely deserve right to have a referendum. Are they want to be part of Kiev-controlled territory, or they want to become independent or join Russia? People there are Russian-speaking people, majority, vast majority. They are oppressed. They are terrorized by Ukrainian neo-Nazis that are basically spearhead of this Western-controlled regime in Ukraine. And I think during the negotiations, if there will be any negotiations at all, Russia will most definitely demand referendums to take place in these regions: Kharkov, Dnipropetrovsk, Nikolaev, Odessa, at least, possibly Chernihiv and Sumy also, or maybe even all over the Ukraine, this former Soviet Republic, in every single region, and let the people decide. Do they want to keep this nonsense? Do they really want to be part of this Bolshevik creation? And I remind you, dear friends, that Ukraine was created by Bolsheviks. There was no Ukraine ever in history on the political map. Never, right? Word Ukraine comes from Polish word Akraina, which means outskirts. Outskirts. That's how Poles were calling certain areas of modern Ukraine that was at the time controlled by Poles. Outskirts. This word never meant that there were some ethnic group Ukrainians that are living there. No. This word had and still has a very direct meaning. It's outskirt, right? And from Polish language, this word Ukraina migrated, or this name for certain areas there migrated in Russia, and then Russians also start calling certain areas Ukraina, which changed in Ukraina eventually, as language does that kind of stuff, isn't it? Some words, similar words in one language sound this way, in another other way, and that's all, really. Ukraine as some sort of quasi-state was created by Bolsheviks after revolution, and it was a Ukrainian Soviet Socialist Republic. Never before there was any republic or kingdom or whatever under such a name. And therefore, I believe people that are living in this former Soviet Republic territory deserve to have a vote. Do they really want to be part of this nonsense, non-historical entity that was created by Bolsheviks, or they want to seek like independence maybe, or to join Russia, where they belong really, right? Because we are talking about historical Russian territory. And one should keep in mind that even Kiev, by the way, at one point in history was a capital of Russia, right? That's why that period called like Kievian Rus, Kievskaya Rus, right? So this idea that Wall Street Journal is floating is definitely non-starter. And if Trump comes really thinks that they're gonna come up with this idea and Moscow will take it, I mean, come on, man, you are not serious then. That means you are not serious. You never were serious about the escalating. Because, I mean, if you know anything about Russia, if you know anything about the situation in the battlefield, then, and if you really want to de-escalate, you will come up with initiatives that will make sense for Russian side. This initiative does not make no sense at all. It's just garbage, I mean, crap, total crap, right? So that's my take on these ideas that allegedly Trump camp is working on. But yet again, if Trump will choose in his administration, for his administration, people like Pompeo and other mass murderers and criminals, then maybe on initial stages, Trump will come up with initiative that he will know Russia will never accept, and he will use then this situation to further escalate with Russia and to go down on the path that Pompeo proposed with the 500 billion US dollar land lease and all that stuff. Long-range strikes on deep inside Russian territory and so on. And by the way, Russian president, for a reason, spoke during that Valdai conference about risks that if world continues to move on this escalatory ladder, then at some point, even nuclear weapons may be deployed, right? And earlier, Russian side was very clear that if Washington will authorize NATO member states to conduct long-range strikes deep inside Russian territory, then Russia will retaliate with their heavy hand. And that's and all this BS Western propaganda that topic is about lifting restrictions on Kyiv regime and stuff. It's all BS, by the way. It's nonsense. Topic really is about authorizing NATO to launch missiles to strike deep inside the Russian territory. That's Moscow's position, and that's true. That's just simply true. Kyiv regime in no circumstances will be able to carry out such strikes. They just don't have a means for that, right? So let's see, by the way, let's see. I want to be optimistic, for God's sake. I want this conflict to end. I want to see the escalation between collective West and Russia. I really want to see the escalation, but our Western ruling elites are sane enough, let's say, to realize that they are going nowhere with their current strategy. I don't know. Only time will tell. And by the way, Kremlin already reacted, at least partially, on this article in a Wall Street Journal. Let me translate this news also. And so, press secretary of the Russian president, Dmitry Peskov, called the abstract and impersonal publication in the Wall Street Journal about the alleged theme of Donald Trump's plan for a settlement in Ukraine. Everything is depersonalized there. It looks like the Wall Street Journal plan for Ukraine. Rather, publications are more and more abstract in nature, Peskov told reporters. So yes, that's the way I see also, by the way. That's why I'm talking about. Maybe Wall Street Journal just made up this whole story because these initiatives, these ideas, definitely not gonna fly in Moscow. And if Trump and J.D. Vance during the election campaign were serious about de-escalating, then then they would come up with some really proper plan, not this non-starter, right? But time will tell. Time will tell. Meanwhile, by the way, State Department is making interesting statements that Washington will support Kyiv regime if Zelensky will choose to start. If Zelensky will decide to start negotiations with the Russian side on the escalation. This was stated by Matthew Miller, representative of the State Department. Okay. It's actually hardly anyone in this world doubt that Zelensky is not making no such decisions, by the way. This decision about the escalation will be made in the West. And only in the West, not in Kyiv, because who the hell is Zelensky, man? This mediocre actor that is acting as a president for like how many years now, and making laughing stock from himself and and sacrificing, basically participating in sacrificing citizens of this former Soviet Republic. Zelensky is not making no decisions, by the way, about some major issues. When it comes to internal stuff, yeah, Zelensky may have some power, and he may be one of the deal breakers when it comes to which corrupt groups are stealing how much money and what percentages is going to him and his team. But when it comes to some geopolitical stuff, Zelensky is making no decisions, obviously. Although when it comes to statements, Zelensky is always happy to say some crazy stuff. And for example, he demanded, according to Zlyad newspaper, he demanded that frozen Russian 300 billion to be transferred to be given to him, basically. And this is not a joke, by the way. That's what Zelensky said, that this 300 billion that Western collective West frozen from the Russian assets belongs to him, belongs to Kiev regime, and should be sent to Kiev regime. Can you imagine how many mansions he may buy with that 300 billion? But I don't think Western ruling class is dreaming about giving him that 300 billion. They want it for themselves, right? Anyways, let's continue. When it comes to this crisis, I mean, Ukrainian crisis, when it comes to Western ruling elites, by the way, as time goes by, it is becoming more and more difficult to take anything that comes from that side seriously, because RIA Novosti is reporting that Russian armed forces liberated Kremlin Balka settlement in a DPR. Many members of our community probably already are familiar with this news because many military channels reported about it yesterday evening. So this is Kremlin Balka area, by the way. So this is South Donetsk sector, and then this is Pokrovsk sector, of course, and this is Kremlin Balka settlement. Progress of the Russian armed forces continues all along the front line. Especially noticeable, this progress is, of course, right now on South Donetsk and Pokrovsk sectors of the front line. Although, by the way, recently Russian side had significant progress on a sectoral scale in Seversk direction, and also, of course, in Kupiansk direction, on the southern flank of Kupiansk direction. Let's continue with some other news. And well, this is also very important news, dear friends. Argumenty Fakty, Russian news paper, is reporting that Odessa basically is emitting radiation like Chernobyl. That's a headline. That Odessa is emitting, Odessa port, to be more precise, is emitting invisible death like Chernobyl. So let me translate this news because it is important. It is obviously important. And I will give you some details on that. So radiation level in the port of Odessa has exceeded the threshold beyond which terrible changes began in the human body. Internal organs are affected. According to international standards, 0.5 microsievert per hour is the upper safe limit for humans in Odessa. In different districts of the city, indicators are seeing 19 and even 22 microsieverts per hour. In other words, there is no longer any question of safe indicators. In order to understand a little better all these numbers, it is worth clarifying for a general understanding that with a one-time X-ray procedure, and of course all of us one time in our lives we're going to medical institutions to do X-rays, isn't it? and one X-ray is approximately 10 microsieverts per hour. So if this report is correct on argumenti facti, and in certain places of Odessa, in port area mainly and closer to the port, radiation levels are 19 to 22 microsieverts. That means that people that are working or living there are in a X-ray machine constantly. That's what it is. And military expert Alexander Ivanovsky gave the comment to argumenti facti on this issue, and he said that there might be 3 reasons why this is happening. First reason is that maybe EU member states, Western states, probably were using Ukraine as a place where they are sending their spent uranium, and that may be a reason why radiation levels are increasing. It is also theoretically possible that areas where the spent uranium was stored, or vessels that were carrying this spent uranium from the West, were destroyed during one of the Russian strikes, and that might also cause increase in radiation levels. And by the way, if that's the case, then well, fault is obviously on the West, because if in a very same vessel you are shipping artillery shells, missiles, and also spent uranium, then Russian intelligence may knew about weapon systems. They may have no idea about spent uranium from Western nuclear power stations, and strikes could happen in that case. But this is just a speculation on part of military expert. He's just trying to explain from where this radiation could come. So he's saying that one is this spent uranium from the West that was delivered to Kiev controlled territory. Second is in artillery shells, weapons, basically munition with their spent uranium that NATO is supplying the regime with, and if such weapons were stored in certain facilities that was targeted by Russian forces, as a result of explosions, this dust from depleted uranium that are used in those munitions, Western-made munitions, can also influence radiation levels. Fault is on West again and the Kiev regime. And third reason that this military expert Alexander Ivanovsky is coming up with is a possibility, and this is most dangerous, that thirdly, he's pointing out to a possibility that Kiev regime is working on a dirty bomb. So they are delivering some radioactive materials in Odessa area to build the dirty bombs, maybe, and in process they are just contaminating vast areas. That may be a reason also, but in any case, I mean, numbers are quite dangerous, isn't it? That it seems like people who are working and are living in certain areas of Odessa, in Odessa port area, nearby territories, they are basically operating in a X-ray machine environment. They are receiving X-rays every single hour, 24/7, and it is extremely dangerous. And of course, there is a risk if some radioactive materials have not been handled properly by Kiev regime's representatives. Then of course there is a risk of contamination of rivers and the Black Sea also. So it is I don't think Western media outlets gonna report about it, but it is the dangerous stuff. It is dangerous stuff. I don't think even residents of Odessa know about this, because hardly Kiev regime's propaganda outlets will inform locals about harm that was generated by Kiev regime and their Western masters and their proxy war against Russia. Let's continue, and there are also very interesting news, by the way, that according to head of Russia's Rostec, giant in military industrial complex, Russian 5th gen fighter jet Su-57, Felon as it designated by NATO, is their only 5th gen fighter jet which successfully operated in a hostile environment where better Western air defense systems were operating, like Iris-T, NASAMS, and Patriot. And this statement from Sergei Chemizov is clearly indicating, confirming basically that Su-57s were actively used and will be used in zone of special military operation. And there was no reports, by the way, that ever any Su-57 was lost due to enemy fire. Recently, Russian heavy stealth drone was destroyed, but it was destroyed by Russian Su-57 because those drones have some AI in it. Probably there was some issues with this drone, and the Su-57 pilot basically launched a missile to take down that drone. And that was the first time when we even see Su-57 or S-70 Охотник drone, that's the name of that drone, in zone of special military operation. And now this news that Su-57 is only basically 5th gen fighter jet in this world, which demonstrated successful operations in areas of work of top Western air defense systems like Patriot, NASAMS, Iris-T, and so on. Let's translate at least this sentence. So the Russian 5th generation fighter Su-57 is the only one in the world that has shown effectiveness in countering American Patriot air defense systems. This was announced by the general director of the Rostec Corporation, Sergei Chemizov, on the eve of their air show in China's in Zhuhai, where export version of the Russian plane has been sent. And this is also another important news, dear friends, that Russia developed export variant of their Su-57, Su-57A, and this plane will participate now in this air show China in Zhuhai city. Probably I'm pronouncing name wrongly, sorry for that. And well, I hope there will be interest towards Russian Su-57 export variation, and export variations are not are a little bit downgraded versions basically of their main variant, but still very capable, obviously still very capable. And I hope Russian Su-57s will gain interest of the foreign buyers, and this plane will be big success, not just in terms of replacing all the generation planes in the Russian air fleet, but also on the world market. And also, by the way, Su-75, that is, isn't it, checkmate, another 5th gen fighter jet that Russia is developing. Although as checkmate, Su-75 is not yet operational, right? It's in stage of development, while Su-57 is in service for quite a while now. India probably will have an interest in this plane. India, maybe Egypt, Algeria, possibly. many countries in this world, by the way, many countries in this world will have an interest to buy this plane, I guess. Also, RT is reporting that Israel sends planes to evacuate basically Israeli citizens that went to football match between Dutch Ajax and Maccabi of Tel Aviv after game, and there was clashes on the streets between these Israeli citizens, Maccabi fans basically, and the locals. Some very disturbing images, by the way, on internet. I share some of them on my Telegram channel. This is obviously totally unacceptable. Sport should stay out of politics no matter what. That's my take. I mean, maybe I can understand that emotions are high, and there are many people worldwide are disgusted by actions of the Netanyahu and his government, right? But one should always make distinguish from each other, isn't it? There is a Netanyahu's regime, and there is a citizens of Israel that have nothing to do with this regime, right? They might be even in opposition to that regime. So how these people that are attacking Israelis on the streets of Amsterdam know who these persons are? They just are attacking them just because they are Israeli citizens. This is not right, by the way. This is wrong always, right? And the situation becomes so bad that, Israel had to send 2 planes to, conduct this emergency operation and evacuate basically its citizens from Amsterdam. Crazy. This is crazy, man. This is unacceptable. You cannot target people just because they are citizens of this country or that country. You may don't like policies of that country or regime that that country has, but to target citizens of that country just because they are citizens there, I mean, this is wrong, by the way. How you are any better than Netanyahu, for example? Commerçant newspaper is reporting that, according to Wall Street Journal again, Trump during his second presidential term may try to isolate Iran. And he might, and probably he will try to do so. Recently, I shared my take, what I think might happen during the Trump's presidency, and in that video I said that I would not be surprised at all if Trump's administration will further escalate with Iran and also with China. And that's exactly what is going to happen, I'm afraid. So after returning to the White House, Donald Trump may increase sanctions pressure on Iran, including by trying to cut off the country's oil revenues. The Wall Street Journal newspaper writes, citing sources, one of the newspaper's sources who worked at the White House said that Trump promised to diplomatically isolate Iran and weaken it economically so that the country could not continue to finance Hamas, Hezbollah, as well as Yemeni Houthis and Shiite groups in Iraq and Syria. Sources close to Trump's inner circles, reported about it. Okay, he will try. I don't think Iran will stop supporting Hezbollah insurgency, basically. I don't think Iran will stop funding groups that are seen by Iran as an insurgency against occupation, against Israeli aggression. But same time, I also don't see possibilities on part of Trump's future administration to really isolate Iran, because after all, Iran is a BRICS member state. How are you going to isolate Iran, by the way? Iran is a BRICS member state, right? So it's not even technically possible to isolate this country at this point. And when it comes to oil, Iranian oil, well, you know my take on the Western ruling classes strategy in Middle East. I'm 100% convinced that they want to provoke regional war to shut down navigation in the Persian Gulf and through Hormuz Strait, so that China will be cut off from Middle Eastern energy sources. And they don't care what kind of damage that will do to world economy or to economies of the Western states. They just don't care about it. And one should keep in mind, by the way, that US is fully independent from Middle Eastern oil. After revolution in oil industry, when fracking became a thing, US basically achieved their energy independence, oil independence. And US is now producing so much oil and gas with this fracking technology that they are net exporters of this oil and gas, right? And big players, by the way, on our world energy market. So US will, some may argue, US will be okay if you know, there will be some regional war in the Middle East, and the Middle Eastern countries will not deliver on the world market their oil and gas. White House may impose some, you know, pressure on energy companies so that cost of energy will not skyrocket. And they definitely don't care about the rest of the world, by the way. Why would they? When they ever demonstrated that they really care about this world? Never, right? Western ruling class, I mean. So yes, when it comes to this topic of oil, yes, unfortunately, it is highly likely that under Trump's administration, Western ruling class will further escalate in Middle East. They will use their proxies, Netanyahu's regime, for example, to constantly escalate until they will be able to provoke regional war. That's their strategy, as far as I understand, and their, I guess, strategy for the rest of the world should be exactly the opposite, to somehow make sure that Western ruling class would not be able to provoke regional war. But when it comes to, yes, hostilities towards Iran from future Trump's administration, I have no doubts that they will escalate. With Iran, they will escalate with China, and most likely they will further escalate with Russia also. Unfortunately, by the way, but that's how probably things will go down. You know, I'm not happy to say so, but you know, the newspaper is reporting that well, traders in Europe are afraid that there will be some shortages of gas this winter, according to the last newspaper, and that means that most likely prices on the gas are about to increase in Europe, because usually that kind of information from energy companies, from traders and so on, are coming as a justification for a price increase. And according to this report, main reason why shortages may occur is that European economies are undergoing transformation from dependence on Russian pipeline gas to a dependence on LNG, right? And not everywhere infrastructure is on the same level. And also, when it comes to LNG, by the way, European states not always are capable to compete with their Asian countries, and even US energy companies, by the way, prefer to sell their LNG in Asia because they make more money there. So Europe, at some point, European economies may end up in a situation there when they would not even be able to buy gas. You know. A few more news. RT is reporting, because they would not be able to compete with their other markets that are paying more. Only solution in that case is, yet again, gas from Russia, pipeline gas from Russia, but I don't think this hostility towards Russia gonna die down anytime soon. Hostility from EU, from collective West in general. So therefore, they cannot rely on Russian. They cannot do some business with Russia. They're prohibiting basically their own companies, their own economies. And same time, they are struggling to compete on LNG market also. So what is the future for EU economies, by the way? I don't know. You tell me. You know? Without energy, there is no economy. That's for sure. And without cheap energy, companies are unable to compete with the countries that have cheaper energy, right? Anyways, let's continue. Art is reporting that EU leaders threaten Georgia, by the way, once again. So leaders of France, Germany, and Poland have said they will oppose Georgia's accession into EU unless it repels recent legislation that conflicts with the European values and the principles. I mean, what is European values, by the way? I mean, significant number of members of our community are from Europe. I mean, difference. What is the European values? What these guys are talking about? Let's say in this particular case, France, Germany, and Poland, what values they have? I mean, what similar values they have? One may argue Christianity. Okay, I get that. And then they are so different. They have different tradition, different history, different everything, including languages, by the way. They have almost nothing in common. Right? And they have some European values. They hate each other, for God's sake. What we are talking about. They hate each other. Poles hate Germans. Germans hate Poles. French hate everybody. And everybody hates French. I mean, come on. We all know this, by the way. Isn't it? We all know this. I spent quite a number of years living in UK, by the way. And we still don't like French. I mean, really, they don't like French, by the way. Maybe because of the 100-Year War or whatever. But they still don't like French, and French still don't like Brits. So why everybody's pretending in Europe that they somehow start loving each other, you know, so much? When they hate each other, for God's sake, and hate each other for centuries and centuries. They never had good relationships, ever. After all, it was Europe that two world wars started, right? Not in Asia, not in Africa, not in South America. It was Europe. And these clowns in the leadership of EU member states are talking about some European values and principles. What principles Macron has? Person that today can say one thing and literally tomorrow something exactly the opposite. And these guys are talking about principles and values. Unbelievable, man. Let's continue with this news. If the former Soviet state wishes to join their bloc, it must show commitment to reform by repealing recent legislation that runs counter to European values and principles. French President Emmanuel Macron, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, and the Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk announced in a joint statement on Thursday. So if it was up to me, by the way, I will say to all three of them, just get lost. Get lost. Georgian leadership somehow knows better what is good and what is not for Georgia and Georgian society. And I don't think they need any calls from these criminals, by the way. Scholz, Tusk, or Macron, and I'm really surprised. I'm really surprised that current leadership of Georgia, by the way, is end up being strong enough to withstand all these attacks. At least for now, all these attacks that they're experiencing day in, day out. And when it comes to legislation, by the way, of course, you all know that Western ruling class, Western so-called elites are not happy with their recently adopted laws by Georgian parliament about foreign agents and about ban of LGBTQ propaganda. That's all. That's what they don't like. They don't want Georgian people to know from which countries, which organizations these NGOs are receiving money and for what purposes. And the Western ruling class, Western elites, don't want Georgian society, especially younger generation, to be safe from their whatever sick propaganda globalists want to push all over the world. That's all. You know? Anyways, I don't think Tbilisi will listen to these clowns, by the way. Macron, Scholz, or Tusk. They should not spend even a second on those idiots. RIA Novosti is... And Georgia don't need EU. I mean, Georgia definitely don't need EU to be successful. Definitely, by the way. In EU member states, Euroscepticism is on rise. More and more people are realizing that they lost country while joining EU. And their traditions, their real values are under attack by being the member of this bloc, right? And why Georgia wants to become part of that failing quasi-organization, quasi-state, whatever the EU is. I mean, it does not make no sense, really. I mean, and your friends, I will end this update on this news from Science Field that CERN, by the way, proposed to Russian scientists that they want to expel. Decision was already made, as far as I understand, to operate in this project, but not under Russian flag. And and these criminals, by the way, called scientists themselves, these ideologized, elements, still call themselves scientists, and they are demanding from Russian citizens that were working on this project for over a decade. They're demanding from them to operate under a neutral flag. What the hell is happening, man? What happened to these people, man? I just don't get it. Sport and science should be out of politics, but look at this. Look at this. The West offers Russian scientists to continue working at the European Organization for Nuclear Research, also known as CERN, which is you're all familiar with this big hadron collider, right? That is built in Switzerland. On Russian money also, by the way. Having received their international status of employees of the Joint Institute for Nuclear Research in Dubna near Moscow, but the Russian state will not interact with the West under such a Mikhail Kovalchuk, president of the Kurchatov Institute National Research Center, said in an interview with RIA Novosti. After the start of a special military operation, our former partners began to restrict our participation in the joint projects and push us out of CERN. They have denied access to CERN to employees of a Russian institute, Kovalchuk said. So that's the face of Europe, by the way. That's the face of the world, Western world right now. That they are discriminating Russians just because they're citizenship. If this is not a sickness, by the way, if this is not demonstrating how sick modern Western world is, then I don't know what this is then. It's sick Russophobes, by the way. Xenophobes, basically. Those people that are acting this way, they are just mentally ill in general. And they need to hate someone. Right? Today, they hate us. Tomorrow, they may hate anyone else. They are just full of hatred, these losers, these losers, man, disgrace of humanity. They call themselves, scientists. So I will end this update on that, dear friends. It is good that Russian side basically tell to CERN that they can get lost. if they will lose more without cooperating with Russia, because Russia has top scientists in many fields, including physics, by the way, and without Russian knowledge and technologies, I don't think CERN or any country in the collective West gonna go too far. They want to, Western ruling elites are creating this illusion that they are on the top of the game in all fields, by the way. But when you dig in, you will find out that this is not the case. You will find out that this is completely not their case. And that's it. That's it for today. First update, or at least quite long update, dear friends. But after all, you can pause and then continue if you want to. Please click that like button. Thanks God, dear friends. There are people in the West that are doing as much as they can to wake up their societies, to tell them that they are wrong. They cannot be xenophobes. They cannot hate Russians just because their government or their regime propaganda tell them so. And our community mainly are these people, isn't it? From all around the world, but including from the Western world, because I don't think there are many members or even single member in our community that are Russophobe. I don't think so. So things are not that bad. Thanks God, not everybody is on the same page with those Russophobes, but it is upsetting, by the way. It is upsetting when you read so much negativity, when you see so much negativity and hostility that coming towards us from the collective West. It's upsetting, man. It should not be this way, but Anyways, dear friends, this is it for now. Hopefully you will find this update informative, interesting, maybe a little entertaining also. That would be good. And if so, please click that like button, leave some commentary just about anything, any topic. Likes and comments, that's all we have to at least try to influence algorithm. And if you like my work, if you see further development of this project, please consider to support. You can do it with donations through PayPal or Boosty, or by subscribing to my Patreon page, on which I have quite a lot of extra content on regular basis, including second updates and some videos about life in Russia. And I have, I'm preparing some surprises for our Patreon and Boosty communities, and maybe even today I will publish some content that hopefully our communities will like there. So I'm always thinking, I'm not always able to make extra content every single day, unfortunately, but I'm always thinking on that and trying my best. Links are on this video in the description box and in the pinned comment. And well, I guess this is it. This is it for now. Have a wonderful day and great upcoming weekend. Take care.